And welcome back. So we'll start by drawing the nose with a little bit of base structure. So I'm going to do a simplified version of the skeletal structure just to show that little arc and where it comes from. And then we'll put the nose shape right over top of that. And I'm going to start very angular just to show a idea of, again, structure, perspective, alignment. Angles are good for all these things. Really helps to simplify anything that we draw on the body, but definitely the nose. And so you see we can use very sharp angles and points, and it gives us a very simplified version of the nose, but again, a good sense of structure to base it from. I actually like starting with a side view a lot of times as well, because it's even more simple to draw, and then it gives me a base kind of understanding or knowledge to work from, and then I start to do more dimensional versions like you see here. Again, angles and basic shapes are great for perspective. So now that we're trying to convey a sense of looking up at the nose, I like to use triangles. I like to use, again, very rigid shapes to essentially start the process. And I can always add more organic forms over and through this. But again, to me, there's no other way to approach drawing the nose in an upshot like this, because if I just kind of wing it, I generally don't get that accurate. But with a few basic shapes, I can do something a little bit more discernible and easier to complete. So again, same approach, but now we're looking downward at the nose. I like to drop in an oval for the tip of the nose, the bulbous part of the nose, but the rest, very basic rigid shapes. At this point, it could be something mechanical, right? So I kind of think of it in terms of that, like draw a robot nose first and then slowly bring it to something more and more organic as you go. So after you do enough of these from different angles, you'll hopefully start to see patterns. You'll start to get a sense of flow, and it'll become more and more of a simplified endeavor for you. It just takes that bit of practice. Again, keep the shapes as simple as possible until you start to feel like you could build out the nose. And then you can start to add in more depth and more angle changes. Like so for the nostril area and the tip of the nose itself, there's obviously a lot more going on there than those basic ones I implied to the left. But I wanted to warm you up to that idea first. And even this one could have been better. Like there's a lot of little subtle bends and angles and plane changes, I guess you'd say, in the very tip of the nose. Some more than others, right? Some noses appear more simplified, and some are a lot more complex to draw. But essentially, you're going to have to warm up to that idea, and it's drawing from life. It's practicing often. And then all of a sudden, you just start to spot little areas that you're like, wow, I wasn't quite capturing that before, but now I see it plain as day. Those bits of, I don't know what you want to call them, enlightenment, I guess, where we remove the barriers in our mind, that doesn't just happen overnight. Like I've been drawing a long time, and I still miss the mark. I feel like even with this one, it's not as good as I thought it would be, like I just want to be honest. Like there's times I go into an illustration and it comes out a little bit better, but more often than not, it's like I get done and I'm like, oh, I could have did better. All right. So that's just something that we continue to do to try to improve our ability. But again, when you start with the structure-based approach and then you start to do different studies, like in this case, I'm going to do a value study. So I'm trying to make it look a bit more realistic. And so it's transforming it from the structure-based approach to capturing some of the organic nature, and then even the values that tell us, oh, this shape is more rounded here, and it's flatter here, and it has a subtle bend here. And again, trying to establish plane changes. And there's just little things to pay attention to. So like the area in between the nostrils, most of the time, I would say most noses, drops down further. It's not equal. It's not flat across. There's some that I'm sure that look really flat across, but some that, or most that area drops down further. So if you're looking at an angled view like this, you're probably going to see less of that other nostril, right? So you can start off drawing it even and symmetrical, but then you have to almost perceive, well, if that area is lower and it's blocking more of the nostril, then obviously the nostrils can't be the same size from a view like this. So it's little things like that that you start to pick up on. But again, it doesn't happen very quickly. It happens through lots and lots of revisions. It's hard work to develop as an artist. It really is. And it takes a lot of diligence. So with this one, again, just trying to show you a little bit more of a dimensional feeling and hopefully get you to see how I would take it from, again, that mechanical kind of view of the nose into something softer, more organic. But you have to be careful here as well. You could take that too far. You can overly soften the nose and make it look too organic and lose any sense of structure that needs to be there. So like anything else in the human body, it's a balancing act. It's structure versus organic, and there's times you need even small angles and rigidness into something as soft as a nose or any part of the body, really. There's just, I can't think of any part of the body that doesn't have any angles. Generally the angles help to make it look and feel more realistic, but again, those overdone and you get something to the left, which obviously is like, a robot, something mechanically designed. And so I'll just continue adding some dark to light here. I'm adding the dark in a very light method. That way I can slowly see it come together, blending, adding a little bit more, blending. It's a little bit more time consuming, but it's like a nice way to slowly perceive it coming together, getting in a little bit of the bounce light, skin's reflective, so trying to get some of that in there. But I'll quickly finish this one up and then we'll move on to one more example. I want to show you one in a line art technique so that you got a good variety of ways to look at this. All right, so there we go. And so for the next one, I'm going to draw something in more of a comic style. Take it a little bit further. Again, I'm going to flesh out some of the underlying anatomy of the nose, but I'm also going for a more angular approach. I typically use more angles in my comic art anyways, but again, I want this to look stylized and fun, but I want to show you in a way that can be done with inked work or line work. And so the part I want to point out here is that even though I'm just dropping in some lines, I'm trying to make sure anyways, that I have subtle bends and shifts in the line work. So you can see the tip of the nose jets out a little bit further than the bridge of the nose. The bridge of the nose isn't completely straight. There's a bend there. And so I'm mixing in organic and angular effects. I'm going to add quite a bit of rendering to this one, or probably a bit too much for a nose, but when I'm doing practice studies, I like to just kind of go wild with it and, maybe even mess it up a little bit at times because it seems to be the best way to learn. Like sometimes we have to take it a bit too far to know where the limit was, but a lot of times less is more, and I think I over-rendered, especially the top side of the nose. Oh well, let me know what you think. But, again, this is just a method to show you that this technique and approach can be used for whatever. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a value study, doesn't matter if it's a comic art study. I feel like the structure-based approach and building up to, the forms and the volumes is just easy to comprehend. I mean, hopefully it is for you. And you can let me know in the comment section below, like, hey, I got this part, but I didn't understand this. Any food for thought so I understand how to better present the information to you is always great. But I generally just start, whenever I create these videos, I explain it in the way that best allowed me to learn. And I struggled drawing noses for so long. I still do. Like they're just not an easy part of the body to draw. And it's basically like, whenever it is something more difficult, that's when I get back to the simplified approach. Structure, study the anatomy, and do some stylized renderings. And so I'm going to touch this one up just a little bit more. But hopefully these lessons have been informative for you. Hopefully it's shown you that by using a structure-based approach and then learning to transition to organic forms can really be a nice way to visualize and learn how to draw really any part of the body better, but definitely the nose. And so I'd love to know what you think, as well as what you'd like to see in the future. All that feedback is very helpful for me. And keep in mind, if you want to learn more, I teach on Udemy and Skillshare. There'll be links in the description box below. I always appreciate the support. It allows me to continue to do what I do here. So thank you very much for watching today's video. As always, keep drawing, keep having fun, and bye for now.